What's all this about an unprecedented human cost of greed? Loopholes and lies. Well, today we are going to consider the case of the Doña Paz. Undoubtedly, the image of the doomed Titanic, with its loss of life being over 1,500 people, has dominated our thoughts of maritime disasters for over 100 years. However, a far less known tragedy silently rests beneath the Philippine waves, holding a chilling record: the deadliest peacetime shipwreck in history, with a total loss of life being almost 3 times that of the Titanic. This is the story of the Doña Paz, a tale woven with dreams, desperation, and a nightmarish collision that claimed over 4,386 lives. But before we delve into the depths of this forgotten tragedy, let's consider the circumstances at the time. Maritime disasters, be they from the fiery infernos of oil tankers to the crushing jaws of storms, have long haunted seafaring history throughout the ages. Each one of these becomes a further grim reminder of the dangers and vulnerability of life aboard these steel leviathans. The Titanic, with its 1,500 souls lost, permanently etched itself into popular memory. However, it pales in comparison to the silent screams echoing from the watery grave of the Doña Paz. While the world remembers the wartime horrors of the Wilhelm Gustloff, which is estimated to have taken 9,400 lives, and is therefore the worst maritime disaster not only of wartime, but also when measured against lives lost, the Doña Paz stands as a stark reminder that peacetime can offer no guarantees of safety. In 1987, on a fateful December night, this passenger ferry embarked on a journey from Light to Manila, its hold brimming with hopes and dreams far exceeding its official capacity. Testimony from survivors claimed thousands had clung to the vessel, a stark contrast to the mere 608 total capacity it was designed for. As darkness cloaked the Tablas Strait, the Doña Paz's course collided with that of the Mount Vector, an oil tanker laden with flammable cargo. The impact, a screeching of metal on metal, then ignited into a fiery inferno that devoured both vessels in a matter of seconds. Panic became the air passengers breathed, flames the terrifying backdrop to their screams, life jackets, locked away or non-existent, and in any event woefully insufficient in number, made a mockery of their struggle for survival. Undoubtedly, the image of the doomed Titanic, with its loss of life being over 1,500 people, has dominated our thoughts of maritime disasters for over 100 years. However, a far less known tragedy silently rests beneath the Philippine waves, holding a chilling record: the deadliest peacetime shipwreck in history, with a total loss of life being almost 3 times that of the Titanic. This is the story of the Doña Paz, a tale woven with dreams, desperation, and a nightmarish collision that claimed over 4,386 lives. But before we delve into the depths of this forgotten tragedy, let's consider the circumstances at the time. Maritime disasters, be they from the fiery infernos of oil tankers to the crushing jaws of storms, have long haunted seafaring history throughout the ages. Each one of these becomes a further grim reminder of the dangers and vulnerability of life aboard these steel leviathans. The Titanic, with its 1,500 souls lost, permanently etched itself into popular memory. However, it pales in comparison to the silent screams echoing from the watery grave of the Doña Paz. While the world remembers the wartime horrors of the Wilhelm Gustloff, which is estimated to have taken 9,400 lives, and is therefore the worst maritime disaster not only of wartime, but also when measured against lives lost, the Doña Paz stands as a stark reminder that peacetime can offer no guarantees of safety. In 1987, on a fateful December night, this passenger ferry embarked on a journey from Light to Manila, its hold brimming with hopes and dreams far exceeding its official capacity. Testimony from survivors claimed thousands had clung to the vessel, a stark contrast to the mere 608 total capacity it was designed for. As darkness cloaked the Tablas Strait, the Doña Paz's course collided with that of the Mount Vector, an oil tanker laden with flammable cargo. The impact, a screeching of metal on metal, then ignited into a fiery inferno that devoured both vessels in a matter of seconds. Panic became the air passengers breathed, flames the terrifying backdrop to their screams. Life jackets, locked away or non-existent, and in any event woefully insufficient in number, made a mockery of their struggle for survival. Survivors recall the ferocity of the Inferno's monstrous hunger as it devastated everything in its path. Even the sea itself turned traitor, with the surface ablaze with sticky spilled oil, transforming escape into a fiery gauntlet. For 2 agonizing hours, the Doña Paz battled the flames, a burning pyre illuminated by its own demise, before finally succumbing to the depths, dragging its human cargo with it. Only 26 souls surfaced from the abyss, forever scarred by the night's horrors. The rest, over 4,386, vanished into the ocean's cold embrace. Was it the faulty vector, sailing under a shroud of illegality with an unqualified crew? Or was it the Doña Paz, its manifest ignored, safety measures woefully inadequate? The answer, like the bodies lost, remains shrouded in the smoke and ash of that fateful night. The Doña Paz stands as a chilling monument, a stark reminder of the horrendous human cost of negligence and prioritizing profit over human life. It's not just a story of a ship lost, but of whole communities shattered, a nation wounded, and a tragedy etched in the collective memory of the Philippines. Its testimony serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to prioritize safety and hold accountable those who gamble with human lives. But as we progress through the developing tragedy, we shall discover this is not just a story of loss. It's also a testament to the indomitable human spirit. So, let's get started. How did this tragedy unfold? If you're enjoying this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more content. Also, leave a comment down below about what you would like to watch next, and I will do my best to provide content you guys want to know about. Now back to today's content. In 1963, the Doña Paz wasn't built in Japan. However, at that time she began her journey under the name Himurimaru and was constructed with a capacity for 608 passengers. During its initial service, it was reasonably unremarkable and operated as intended. After 12 years, change was in the wind, and in 1975, she was now operated by the Sulpicio Lines shipping company, sailing under the Philippine flag, and was now christened as the Don Sulpicio, plying the bustling Manila Cebu route. Ambition outpaced caution, and she became a flagship alongside the ill-fated Doña Ana. For the next 4 years, it sailed on without incident. However, a cruel twist of irony struck in 1979. Fire engulfed the Don Sulpicio, leaving it a charred skeleton. Many thought this was to be the end of the vessel. However, it was considered that the structure was still in good shape. So, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, it was resurrected under the new name Doña Paz. It was refitted and had the promise of many years of service to come. Her new home became the Manila to Tacloban route. This route was somewhat of a lifeline to locals, serving the purpose of connecting communities. However, according to the way local shipping at the time operated in this part of the world, there was constantly overcrowding taking place regularly on her voyages. Manifests were ignored, and hundreds, even thousands, clung to hope on board. Exceeding the official capacity, the vessel was designed to safely accommodate by a terrifying margin. And so we arrive at the date of December 20th of 1987. This date became etched in tragedy and infamy. Being just 5 days before Christmas made this tragedy all the more painful. As darkness descended upon the sea, the Doña Paz sailed on its voyage. It was grossly overloaded, mostly with Filipinos seeking solace under a festive sky. Disaster came unannounced as the vessel collided with the oil tanker vector. Immediately following the collision, sparks from the metal of both hulls ripped against each other, ignited a massive fiery inferno that within seconds consumed both vessels. Panic clawed at the throats of sleeping passengers as searing flames, fueled by barrels of oil, painted the sky a horrifying crimson. Chaos swallowed the ferry. Survivors recall the deafening clang of the collision, the inferno's suffocating heat, and the terrified screams swallowed by the roar of the fire. Life jackets, locked away or non-existent, became grim symbols of despair. Confusion reigned supreme as the overwhelmed crew, caught in the throes of their own terror, offered no direction. Driven by primal fear, some passengers flung themselves into the fiery water, clinging to whatever debris offered a sliver of hope. Others, trapped in a steel inferno, succumbed to the flames on the sinking ships. For 2 agonizing hours, the Doña Paz remained afloat, a burning pyre illuminated by the nightmarish glow of its own demise. Then, with a final groan, it surrendered to the unforgiving depths, taking hundreds of dreams with it. The Vector followed suit, its fiery trail marking the path to an aquatic graveyard. Panic and screams filled the air, but escape proved to be a cruel mirage. Life jackets were only provided for just over 600 people. On board were thousands. In the aftermath, only 26 souls clawed their way back from the abyss, forevermore to be haunted by the echoes of that night. Over 4,385 perished, their lives swallowed by the cold embrace of the sea. Was it the negligence of the Vector, sailing under a shroud of illegality with an unqualified crew? Or was it the Doña Paz, its manifest grossly disregarded, safety measures woefully inadequate? The search for blame became a labyrinth of accusations, forever shrouded in the smoke of that fateful night. While official records list 26 survivors, being 20 for passengers from the Doña Paz, and to crewmen from the Vector's 13-man crew, their stories paint a picture of heroism amidst harrowing chaos. The MS Don Claudio, an inter-island ship, became an unwilling witness to the fiery inferno its officers watched, horrified, before pulling just a few survivors from the debris during the following agonizing hour. One notable survivor was Valeri Anaduma. This 14-year-old girl only revealed her survival experience some years later during a television interview. Another, being a nameless 4-year-old boy, became the tragedy's youngest survivor. Tragically, none of the Doña Paz crew were amongst the list of survivors. The survivors, many bearing severe burns resulting from having leapt into the flame-engulfed waters, had eventually made their way to the care of medics aboard the rescue vessel. Though in a severe state of pain, once reality set in, the pain of personal loss ran vastly deeper than physical burns. It was the silence of lost loved ones, the enduring memories of terror lived over and over through many sleepless nights. Yes, the tragedy extended well beyond immediate suffering into the months and years yet to come. Reports reveal there was an 8-hour delay in alerting authorities, followed by another 8 agonizing hours before rescue efforts began. This was systemic failure of the highest order, revealing a woefully inadequate response system. A cruel blow to those clinging to hope, proving to be evidence of neglect and apathy. It became evident that profits were at all times prioritized over passenger safety. This negligence led within seconds to devastating consequences. It's a story woven with the courage of survivors and the haunting silence of the numerous lost souls. On a more positive note, by coming to grips with and understanding and addressing the systemic failures, we can strive to prevent such tragedies from ever again marring the beauty of the seas. Let its story continue to be told, not just as the chilling reminder it is, but also as a view to learning from the mistakes. The scale of this tragedy is colossal when we consider there were an estimated 4,385 souls on board, but a mere 26 managed to survive. Was it the faulty ship Vector? And we say faulty because this oil tanker was sailing without proper certifications and crew? Or was it the Doña Paz, which was proven to be vastly overloaded and woefully ill-equipped? The blame danced in about through lawyers and politicians, never finding a true resting place. The Doña Paz disaster left not just a gaping wound in the Philippine Sea. But also a burning question: how could such a horrible tragedy on such a massive scale have occurred in what is considered a modern world full of innovation and high standards? After all, there have been various shipping tragedies throughout the ages. Surely lessons had been learned and measures taken to avoid future tragedy. Well, like a lot of things in life, it's complicated. As we consider the evidence, what we find, unearthed in investigations, is a cocktail of human error, negligence, and systemic failures combined together was at the root cause. Let's firstly consider the Philippine Coast Guard's initial investigatory probe. It revealed a chilling picture. One lone, inexperienced crew member stood watch on the bridge. While he was at his post, the others assigned to their posts were instead reveling in a party amidst that critical night. Survivors, like Luzgardo Nido, corroborated this, recalling laughter and loud music emanating from the bridge, with even the captain himself of all people joining those festivities. A deeper investigation conducted by the Marine Board of Inquiry yielded an even more damning report. It exposed not just individual lapses, but systemic issues. Overloading, a practice ignored for profit, crammed thousands onto the Doña Paz, far exceeding its capacity. Safety measures became mere suggestions, life jackets locked away, leaving passengers ill-equipped when disaster struck. In short, there was absolutely no consideration given to capping passenger numbers and balancing this against the ship's official capacity, safety equipment, and staffing levels as one would have come to expect in the modern age of maritime public transportation. But the search for blame went well beyond the timing of the immediate tragedy. The coalition of SAMR and light organizations, which became formed by volunteers fueled by grief, and a demand for justice, meticulously reconstructed in detail the ship's journey. Their findings were far more than alarming. The investigation exposed duplicate tickets were issued to mask the true number of passengers, hinted at a staggering number well beyond anywhere near to a reasonable number that were physically crammed onto a vessel designed to transport 608 people, not the estimated 4,385. Put another way, there should have been 7 ships of similar size assigned to carry that number of people. And further to that, it appeared, this was far from being an isolated incident. Rather, it revealed this to be a consequence of deeply rooted problems. Greed was at the top of the causes, which was at the cost of ignoring any passenger safety. Regulations were routinely ignored at all levels, and accountability remained elusive. The flames that consumed the Doña Paz didn't just swallow a ship. They swallowed untold numbers of lives, leaving behind a void filled with anguish and unanswered questions. The official figure that investigations exposed of 1,583 passengers and 58 crew aboard, which were documented on a revised manifest presented to investigators, paled in comparison to the chilling reality whispered by survivors and hidden beneath the waves. Anonymous voices with insulpicio lines itself hinted at a dark practice. Passengers buying tickets illegally on board, escaping the official count. Complimentary tickets and young children further swelled the invisible numbers. The truth was stark. The official manifest of 1,583 passengers, which in itself is 2.5 times the ship's design capacity, barely scratched the surface of the human cargo the Doña Paz carried. Days after the disaster, the grim picture began to become obvious. Of the 21 recovered bodies identified, only one name matched the manifest. Among the 26 survivors, only 5 of those were officially registered. The numbers grew more horrifying. Representative Daza, based on lists compiled by media, claimed at least 2,000 uncounted passengers perished. Public school teachers alone lost 79 colleagues in the inferno. As investigations progressed further, it unveiled the true scope of the situation. The National Bureau of Investigation, interviewing relatives, estimated there to be 3,099 passengers and 59 crew on board, translating to over 3,100 lost lives. A more thorough presidential task force report, which also analyzed court records and claims, concluded there were a total of 4,340 passengers. Adding the surviving passengers and crew, and including the Vector's casualties, the final staggering figure emerged: 4,385 souls vanished with the Doña Paz. This number, nearly 3 times its official reported capacity, and over 7 times what the ship was designed to carry, became a chilling testament to rampant negligence and greed. The tragedy left behind a nation in mourning. The then-President Aquino called it a national tragedy of harrowing proportions, echoing the profound grief gripping the Philippines as Christmas approached. A joyous season turned tragic. Even Pope John Paul II, the Japanese Prime Minister, and Queen Elizabeth II offered their condolences, acknowledging the vastness of the loss. With estimates exceeding 4,300 perished, Time magazine and others declared it as Asia's version of the Titanic, and went on to deem it as the deadliest peacetime maritime disaster of the 20th century. This grim reality spurred outrage, leading survivors and families of the lost to demand justice. Sulpicio Lines, the operator of the Doña Paz, offered an unthinkably meager compensation, further igniting fury and anger. Their proposed US $620 in 2022 for each victim was an insult, especially as it turns out Sulpicio Lines had insured the vessel for you as $722,246, and additionally the tiny sum of $620 per victim only applied to those on the forged official list. Families of the invisible passengers, those excluded from the manifest, were absolutely devastated and infuriated, demanding accountability, recognition, and justice. The search for answers became a battleground. Investigators initially cleared Sulpicio Lines, pinning the blame on the Vector, which, as it turned out, was operating illegally, lacking proper licenses and qualified crew. However, as time went by, evidence emerged painting a more complete picture. The tragedy was also laid to blame on the practices of Sulpicio Lines, by bringing to light systemic negligence of standards and abandoning any formal adoption of safety standards. The wheels of justice, however, turned very slowly and incompletely. Some 12 years after the tragedy in 1999, the Supreme Court finally held the owners of Vector as being primarily liable, but the fight for compensation remained arduous. Families, even those excluded from the manifests, were eventually deemed eligible for some form of recompense. Yet, questions lingered. Caltex Philippines, the charter of Vector, walked away completely unscathed, a reminder of the complexities and limitations of justice, particularly those with the deepest of pockets and the best of lawyers at their seemingly inexhaustible resources. The Doña Paz is a story of over 4,300 lives needlessly lost to greedy company profits, of dreams turned to ashes, and of families shattered in an instant. It's the story of survivors forever haunted by the flames, carrying the weight of loss and the fight for justice. It's the story of a nation plunged into grief, its Christmas season darkened by the shadow of the disaster. But from the depths of despair, we also consider the hope that emerged from it all. Unfortunately, the Philippines was not exactly considered safe waters. Having experienced many shipping incidents prior to the Doña Paz tragedy, however, due to the scale of this disaster, it had the positive effect of shocking so many people that this in turn brought about some serious changes that were long overdue. The few survivors became beacons of resilience and refused to let the sacrificed lost souls fade for no reason. They, along with the numerous families of the dead, demanded accountability, not just for the immediate tragedy, but also to address the systemic failures that allowed it to happen. They fought for recognition, not just for those officially counted, but for the invisible passengers whose lives were equally precious. Their ensuing years of constant struggle serves as a stark reminder that safety cannot be treated as a mere suggestion, that profit cannot be prioritized over human life. It urges us to build a system where regulations have teeth, where accountability swift, and where the value of life transcends profit margins and bureaucratic loopholes. On a more positive and final note, let it also be said that, by shining a light on the world's biggest peacetime maritime tragedy of the Doña Paz, and also by coming to grips with and understanding and addressing the systemic failures, after almost 4 decades have passed, we honor all those thousands of lost souls that died such horrible deaths, while trusting the terrible price they paid had led to much safer seas as a call to action. Let its story continue to be told, not just as the chilling reminder it is, but also as a view to learning from the mistakes, for the memory of the lost, for the survivors scarred but resolute, for the families forever marked by grief. Let this tragedy be a turning point. Let the Doña Paz story not fade into oblivion, but ignite a fire within us, a fire for a world where safety reigns supreme, and the value of life is held sacred.
Thank you for listening. Please join me next time when we will delve into another episode.